Yeah, so today I have the Simmerstyle board shaper and designer Ola Helenius and pro rider for Simmer, Marc Paré here. Really honored to have him here. And we're gonna talk about one of the Simmer waveboards in the range. This is the Simmer Quantex. And we can recognize the name a little bit from the previous board, Quantum and Quantex. Ola, tell me a little bit about the concept of this board, please.
Yeah, so I mean the old Quantex, that was the first kind of. Oh, we did other short boards, of course, but this was the one with the cut-off nose and tail, and it came actually from an old freeway rocker that went over to Kai's Piahi board, and then he wanted a Hokipa board with a Piahi rocker, and then we made a pintail, and at the same time I made this Quantex, the short one. So the Quantex was like putting in a kind of straight outline with this winger that we had then into a very short board, because I like short boards, and that one went into production, and you actually liked it also. Yeah. But then we had the Quantum, which was our wind swell board for like standard conditions. But at some point we just felt that, well, we can merge these two, and then we made this one. So it also has a bit straighter curve than the Fly. So it is and that actually makes the board, so the rocker is very similar. It's a little bit less. So say that this 79, it matches up the like 92 rocker on the Fly, more or less. You know, there are some small differences also. So this still, like the Quantex, it's kind of, you know, we can maybe look at the outline. It's relatively straight here. And this means that the whole board will have a lot of have good support when you put it on rail, so it won't really push water. So even if you're riding it a little bit slower and so on, you're gonna be able to keep the rail in. So that's kind of the main thing with this one, and that makes it very forgiving and good when the waves when you don't have so much wave power. But this one doesn't have the rocker, and this actually took a few iterations, because what happened was that it felt a little bit too stiff, so you had not so much curve here, and that was okay, but then it was like maybe too little curve here. So we had to do some fine tuning with the curve here, and also the tucked under and the whole rail here to get it to work. And then it's wider in the tail, and it's a little bit thicker in the rail, so everything of that makes it easier to sail. So that's kind of the thing with this board. But we have some guys that use it at Hokipa and so on, so it's still a performance board, but quite easy.
Yeah, for sure. So that was my other question, is like this is a little bit more aimed for like onshore conditions, wind swell. Yeah. The Fly wave is a little more ground swell, but for sure you can really use it in good conditions as well. It's not like just the onshore board. Yeah. For sure. If you choose like the fins for this board, if you, please tell us a little bit about the fins. What should I choose?
So we sell it with a thruster, like this one, and that is also to help a little bit with the early planning and upwind and stuff, and make it still, because it's a kind of a rather, you know, flat rocker. Like here, you want to push up the nose a little bit to make it feel a bit more lively, and since it has a little bit flatter rocker here, then you get more power from the tail, and the fin kind of helps with that. So, in fact, it becomes, I would say, more forgiving in the wave riding also with the thruster, because, I mean, this seems like it wouldn't matter, but it does. But because the fin, even when you turn, it will push up the nose a little bit. So then you automatically end up, the board kind of wants to ride on the back part of the board, and then if you're going slow, then it's going to support you in the turn a little bit, because what might happen is that you push down too much board, and then it will stick. So it will feel, for some, at slower speeds, it will actually feel a little bit looser with a bigger center fin, I would say. Right, yeah. But you can, I sail it with a classic twin setup.
Okay, yeah.
So then that's the best for me, because that also lifts the nose if you put them a little bit back and you have a little bit more looseness. So this is extremely versatile with the fin setups.
Yeah, so this is a new model, and you're pretty much back on Simmer. Yeah, this year.
Yep.
And I know you haven't ridden this so much yet, but do you have like, do you see any potential where you maybe gonna ride this board in what type of conditions and what fins do you think you're gonna use?
Yeah, I mean 100%. I think this is a board that for me it's going to be more my board of choice for more like onshore conditions, and let's say silt, for example. You know that normally we get these straight onshore conditions, so I need something that gets me planing early, as well. I was talking about that it has that support as well on the rail, so I can like draw out the turn like with easiness, and then you know rely on that back part to turn. So yeah, I think it's gonna be my go-to board more for those extreme onshore conditions. You know, to make the ride less demanding. You know, because at the same time when you compete, you don't want as well a board that is too complicated to use, because then it becomes unreliable. So I feel like in those conditions, it's especially gonna help me to ride like a little bit easier and make sure I stick the moves and the turns when I have to.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So before you left, I made this fish board.
Yeah.
So this is actually quite similar, but it has an extended nose. So because didn't you ride that in silt or try at least, or how was it?
Was the Torrent?
The Torrent.
Yeah. So yeah, the Torrent. I actually was riding it in January again, like that same prototype, and it was quite funny because normally I always used it in onshore conditions. So there was one day that I didn't have like a big board then because I only had the 85 production. So I took that one out and it was like side off, pretty offshore, big waves, like logo to mast and punchy. And I was like, yeah, why not? You know, I'm gonna try it. And actually it surprised me a lot, you know, because it was short, so like it would fit like really well in the curve of the wave, and like I could like get this really tight bottom turn off the back of the board. So, and it was very fun to kind of just whip the tail around and throw the tail around, catch it back. So it was, yeah, very interesting board, honestly.
I mean, so I have a similar type, which is one of my go-to boards, and so this one was inspired from that a lot. But it's the kind of board that could never go into production. I think it's too extreme. But then, so this is kind of the same, but then, I mean, this one is like this short.
Yeah.
And so it has kind of the same curve, you know, kind of straight here, but it's a much shorter nose and a flipped nose. But if you add this, you know, I mean, it's still gonna be as loose in general. It's just a little bit longer, more supportive, and you get a little bit more length in the board in the middle and so on. So I think we really nailed it with this one to have this. You know, it's both easy, and also if you push it, it's really radical. With a little bit extra curve here. And then also this is kind of interesting because it might look like it just doesn't do anything. But these are kind of short tails. So everything that happens here, it's I mean, if you have a long board, long tail, like a classic tail, and you have a pin tail or a squash tail, you know, you really won't feel so much of a difference if you're not very much an expert. But when they are short, this is things that happens very close to your foot. So cutting off that, it makes actually the board quite much faster rail to rail. So it gets a lot less tail power. So because this is a much wider tail than the fly from the beginning, then to kind of remove a little bit here, it actually makes a difference.
All right. So you have like pretty like short tails on both this board and the flyway.
Yeah.
For me, when I first saw it, I was really like, I know it's gonna be really good rail to rail, but I was a little bit scared if it's gonna be like bad control in higher speeds and it gets a little bit more hollow and faster. So how do you like compensate for the short tail to get a control?
I mean, when I started with the short tails with the Frugal and those sort of old boards, I made a lot of very small tail refinements, but that's more like to have the control in the top turn and decide a little bit on these fine lines between how loose you want to have it and how grippy. So small things can matter, but actually for the control, like straight line control, if you look at the slalom board,
you
know, they have the shortest tails and no cutouts and stuff, so they remove tail, and it's because in that sort of environment, if you think of standing on the board, then you hit the shock, something shock. Yeah. If the board can do like this without you lifting, and if the back foot is still stable, then it doesn't do so much to you. But if the whole board bounces up, then it's a lot harder. So in a sense you get more control, but then it's a matter of some type of really fast wave conditions. Then a longer rail line will give you a little bit of suction, so you're kind of sucked into the turn in another way. So that's a trade-off for sure. And then there's a particular thing in cross-off. Big waves cross off light wind. It's something that happens with the pumping ability. When you take away tail, it's like you lose a little bit of that. It's a fine tuning thing. I don't think if you because so over the years or actually looking forward, we will do some fine tuning to the tail lengths on different sizes and stuff. But that's just minimal things.
All right, so there we go. There we have the new Simmerstyle waveboards, the range, and thanks a lot guys for coming here, and we see you on the water.